So let's talk about stress. I think lately, as a couple, we've been dealing with stress and anxiety just based on different things that are going on in our life, right? And that's a regular thing of life.
Yeah, it's part of living.
Yeah. And I think everybody deals with stress and anxiety differently, right? Some people really internalize it. Some people, you can see it externally with how they act. And it can impact us really differently. And then there's also ways that you can mitigate, right, stress in your life. And so there's different tools that people might use, whether it's like exercising or listening to something or whatever it is. But how do you see stress and anxiety in our relationship and how it impacts us when either of us is going through a stressful time?
Yeah, so I think each of us deals or has one more than the other. So I think me personally, prior to meeting you, I had more of like, I don't know if I want to call it depression, but I was more sad. And that was more of a leading emotion in terms of a negative emotion than anxiety for me initially.
Yeah.
So I would get sad that I wasn't going out or like I was alone in my apartment or I felt lonely. So those were the things that made me kind of feel sad and or depressed, if you want to call it. When I moved to Washington, some of that went away because there was more around me and I'm an extrovert and I like to have things going on or the option to go do things more than like where I was in Montana. And so, yeah, one of the things that I helped mitigate my depression with was by going out and then meeting people. And then I also met you and then also working out. Working out is like
That's
a
your
happy
thing.
pill. Yeah, it's like my happy pill, literally. So as long as I work out, probably like I'm finding like probably like 4 days a week at a minimum, I usually stay okay. But that's like, I can't go any lower than that.
Yeah.
And like working out, I mean, like for me, I like to have my heart rate go up to like at least the 130s and sit there for like 30 minutes or so.
And you like to be sweating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when your heart rate's 130, you are going to sweat.
Yeah.
So yeah, my way of doing that is I like to get on the exercise bike. And I've tried other things like lifting weights. It doesn't do the same thing for me in terms of helping me.
Yeah.
I've tried the treadmill and Stairmaster, and I'm not saying like you like can't sweat on that or get your heart rate up, but it's easiest for me to do it while cycling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but I already have an idea of which negative emotion affects you the most. But let's hear.
Well, I struggle with both depression and anxiety, and it kind of ebbs and flows, but mainly anxiety.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing. That really,
It's your thing.
it's not my thing. I don't want it to be my thing.
I'm just joking.
But, it's the one that affects me the most.
Yeah.
I think I get anxious about a lot more things. And sometimes it severely impacts me.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this, like I get this paralyzing feeling. And actually today was a day where I struggled with that. I feel like ever since fall started, I'm feeling more blue, I guess. I'm feeling more down and anxious.
Well, that's like the sad, seasonal affective disorder, right?
Yeah.
Especially here in Washington, where I feel like we don't see the sun for, I don't know, sometimes 5 days at least. Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah.
And it's cold on top of it, so.
Right, and now it gets dark so early.
Right.
Whereas in the summer, it gets dark at, 9 o'clock or 9:30, at the peak of summer. And then now it's getting dark at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it feels like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. Like everything is shut down, But there's still so much day left.
Yeah.
But anyways, with anxiety, I can get really stressed. I think I can become hyper aware of things also, because once you're kind of in that heightened state, it's like I start to nitpick on things.
Right.
And so it's not a great place to be, but it is what it is. So I think one thing that I've struggled with is like sometimes with anxiety, I like to kind of find a little bit of an escape. Yeah. And I think many people like to do that. I mean, you're trying to get out of that headspace.
When I feel depressed, I want to escape.
Yeah. And so like, I like to scroll through social media and I like to watch YouTube videos, and that is all great. But as Abe has mentioned to me before, that can lead to more anxiety.
Yeah. And like personally, I've felt anxiety more than the depression lately. For some whatever reason, I haven't had that a lot, but anxiety I started having when I had to have a surgery that went well and everything. But for whatever reason, I got a lot of anxiety and it kind of spiked.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I observed when like I was going through like my anxiety flare, I guess we'll call it. And so when I was scrolling through social media, I'm like, oh, I kind of feel like this like just anxiousness.
Yeah.
And like you want to get like onto the next video. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm watching this 30-second short or whatever it is, however long it is. I'm like ready to scroll on the next one. I'm like, where's my next like excitement?
Right. And it's like, okay, you scroll through 40 videos, you wasted like an hour of time, and you don't even remember what you watched, what you watched. Maybe a couple like highlights, but you don't remember. And it's just this time that just
you don't
passed
remember,
and it was
which
gone.
is kind of weird, right?
It is really weird.
It's bizarre because like you're feeling good. You kind of feel good about it, but also I kind of feel anxious too.
Yeah.
And then
you're just taking in so much information. Right. It's like your brain can't even comprehend everything.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Taking in so much information is just it's almost like overloading your mind so that you can't feel, I guess, your emotion of anxiety or depression or sad or whatever.
Yeah, so it helps in some cases, and then other cases it's kind of like detrimental. Like it's not really good for me either. One thing that we did today was Abe put on some like lo-fi music. Yeah. And
first I put on this music that was coffee shop music.
Yeah. And it was talking about mental health. The girl was having declining mental health, and she was just going through it. And I was like, yikes, what is this?
It was supposed to be coffee shop music, like, almost like lo-fi music.
It was a downer.
It was a downer
for sure.
That's why I ended up finding lo-fi music, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I typed in instrumental music. I didn't want any words.
Yeah, and actually sometimes I have that lo-fi music playing in the background when I'm working, like on my computer. And it can be really nice because it has no words. You don't have to focus on like what's being said, and it's nice in the background. But
so
anyways,
we were playing the lo-fi music.
Yeah, after that, Abe put on lo-fi music, and then we both read a book. And I mean, for a while, I kind of just sat there, kind of was just like listening to the music in my thoughts, and was kind of just trying to get out of this funk I've been in. And then kind of after we had the music, I felt like my mind could settle down a little bit, which was really nice. And then you started reading a book, and I started reading a book. You made us some tea.
Yeah.
And it was just nice to slow down for a second. Not a second, but like, an hour and a half or so. Occasionally, something that I like to do is like I'll listen to a podcast that I've been waiting to listen to. Won't watch it at all, but I'll do my diamond painting.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but they're these basically little jewels. And it's the same thing as if you have one of those color by numbers kind of pages, except it's putting these little jewels with this little jelly on
tiny.
It. They're super tiny.
I'm trying to think what they would be like. Like it's smaller than an apple seed. It's probably like the half the size of an apple seed.
Like a chia seed.
I think they're a little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger. Yeah, but it's super small, and you just have an image, and you stick everything in the correct color, the correct number, shape, or whatever
it is. You have a pen to do it, like a sticky pen.
Yeah, it's like a stylus.
Yeah,
and you put this jelly. I don't know. stuff on it.
It's like this tacky jelly to hold
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah, and that you pick up the little jewels and then you put them onto the page where they're supposed to go. And it's such a tedious project. I'm still not done with that thing. I think
You
there's
started
like
it a couple of months ago too.
Yeah, and I just work on it from time to time when I need something to do. I finally finished the second out of 3 flowers.
You're doing sunflowers?
Yeah, I'm doing a sunflower one. And sometimes it's really nice to do that, and it has helped with my anxiety. Like, there have been a couple days where you haven't been here, you've been working, and I've been off. And then I just do that for an hour.
One of the, really nice. Now that you say this, it kind of makes me think about it. And, you talked about the overload of just information, of taking information while watching YouTube Shorts, Instagram, whatever it is.
Right.
With doing like this type of puzzle, it's also, there's no information overload. It almost gives your mind a rest.
Yes.
In terms of information, but also keeps it distracted at the same time. I think that's the beauty of it. Because it keeps you distracted from, like, kind of helps you distract from your emotion that you're having, or, like, I like reading. That's what really helps me. And, yeah, it gives you a distraction, and then you don't get that sensory overload.
Yeah, and, yeah, it's almost like this mindless kind of activity.
Yeah.
You don't have to, like you said, don't have to think too much. I also like to do like word searches, like where you get like a book from the dollar store and I just like use my highlighter and I'm just in there finding the words, or like a Sudoku puzzle. I mean, that takes some thinking, but it's
not overload
different.
Of information. It's like, and then
it's a puzzle.
And then you're not getting all the emotions from the YouTube videos or the Instagram videos or what have you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so having good coping skills, I think that leads us to that. So if you haven't seen us before, we're the Brewed Together podcast. I'm Abe.
And I'm Alexa.
And we're going to keep jumping back into this episode.
Yeah.
So coping skills, So your coping skill is sometimes YouTube videos or Instagram or what have you, and then sometimes the diamond paintings.
Yeah.
Mine, I like reading books, but I don't necessarily like reading informational books so much.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, we were listening to and watching. No, we were reading an introvert book. We actually have the same book.
Yeah.
And that's more of an informational book. I was struggling with it a little bit today.
Yeah.
Just because I don't, like, when I want to, like, relax, I like a story. It almost, like, when I read non-informational books, like, made up story, whatever, it plays in my mind almost like a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, I don't know, but it's a really slow movie.
Yeah.
Because you only can play, you only can read so fast, and I'm a pretty slow reader. So, yeah. Yeah,
I don't like fiction books as much, unless it's like a book to movie type thing, and then I can kind of I enjoy that, because then you can either, like, I've done like reading the book and then watching the movie, and I've done it vice versa, actually.
I don't know that I've gone back and, like, watched a movie first and gone and read a book after.
That. Yeah, and then I visualize all the characters as they were as I watched them.
You're also a person that doesn't mind knowing the end of something.
Yes.
You told me you read the end of a book. Like, you'll read find out what the ending is, but then start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Like, liking to know what happens to see if it's worth it for me to read, or so I don't get surprised at the end. I don't know. But I don't mind knowing the ending, because I don't know everything in between. I don't know how you got to that point. Like, I love movies that start at the end, where you get a glimpse of the end, and then it starts from the beginning.
Do you think it's more anxiety related?
Maybe. Maybe. I like to know what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably it, actually. Thank you, Abe, the therapist.
Therapist. No. No, diagnose me for my things. No. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But yeah, I like nonfiction books. I like things that are talking about real things over fictional stories.
In terms of anxiety or depression in our relationship, how does one affect the other? In terms of if I'm feeling depressed, how does that affect you? Or feeling anxious? More anxious lately, actually.
Yeah, so I'd say in our relationship, we feel each other's kind of emotions. Like if I'm down, you try to keep my spirits up
for a while
as much as you can. But if you can't keep me up, then you start to feel a little down.
Yeah.
And same with me too. I mean, I'm a big feeler, like especially of people's emotions around me. So like I feel anxious when you're anxious. Like I feel sad when you're sad. It's just like, it's hard to see your significant other be in those moods. And if you keep trying to lift them out, like I know there's been times where you've been anxious and I'm like, Abe, we got to get out of this apartment. We got to like do something else. We need to get outside. And you've been like, oh, I don't really want to go. Right. I don't really want to do that. And then when we get to that place or that event or whatever we're doing, then you're like, oh, I'm glad we got out, right? Like that happened.
You gotta have someone pull you out of your funk or your apartment or your house or whatever it be. Yeah.
And a couple times I have not wanted to work out and I've been in a funk. And you've been like, come on. And you're like getting your shoes on and you don't leave until I come with.
Yeah.
And then finally I come with. And even if it's just, I know you'd like to do your cycling thing, but even if I just walk on the treadmill for like 30 minutes, I'm usually in a better state than I was.
Yeah. I mean, walking on the treadmill is great, I think. And you like to do more weights too.
I do like to do weights.
Weights or movement exercises.
Yeah. I actually like to watch like a little YouTube video and it'll be like a weight focused video so that I can get some guidance, in the gym.
What do you think it is? The act of moving your body or because with those, do you get your heart rate up as like a lot?
When I do the weights, yeah.
Okay.
Or like when I do stairs. So there's certain times, like if I'm on the treadmill and I'm just kind of walking flat and I'm walking at a slower pace, like I don't get my heart rate up. But usually I try to like raise the treadmill up a bit and then I increase my speed and that gets my heart rate up.
Yeah.
Or like when I do the stairs, that gets my heart rate up.
Yeah.
The weights do too, because I'm constantly moving with the weights.
Yeah, that's true. I don't work out with weights, as most people can tell. No. So, I need to work out with weights more. But I love the feeling of just being completely like spent, like just like you can't move anymore. Yeah. And it sounds like maybe I should try incorporating some weights into
it really is great.
My cycling.
Yeah. I know you think like, oh, it's not going to get your heart rate up. It will if you lift, a good substantial weight, not 2 pounds, but like maybe you do the 10 or you something like that. And do like a guided video or app or something like that.
I've actually tried some of your like, I don't know if they're yoga or like yoga workout videos. And those are tough.
Yeah,
doing
some of the yoga ones are challenging.
Like same movement over and like not stopping and
like when you do like vinyasa yoga, I mean you're constantly flowing and you're moving and you're going into downward dog and then you're lifting your leg and then you're like
that's right, yeah.
putting your leg behind you, like you're like holding up your body weight.
Are, yeah. It's all calisthenics, really.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people think yoga doesn't do much,
but
you can get really strong. Yeah. You can get really strong.
And then you go to do it and you're like, I'm done after 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've done classes that are an hour long doing the vinyasa flow. So.
Yeah, I did one hot yoga session with you. Right. I'm like, I can't go back.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. So.
I feel the same way as like when, like I said, sometimes it's hard you try to boost the other person up as much as you can. But then sometimes, like if you can't, sometimes you just need some space. Yes, and we've done that before as well. And I think that helps the other person sometimes.
Which person?
Like both people, actually. Like even the person that's feeling down. Like sometimes you're like, I'm going to go out for a drive or I'm going to go to the store or something. Yeah. Yeah. And it gives... it's weird because even though we live in this this 1-bedroom apartment together and we can be in separate rooms, the feeling of actually having another person in the apartment, even if you can't see them or hear them or whichever, it's like the feeling of their presence, right? And so it's not really like being alone.
Yeah. So sometimes, for us, it's going into a different room. It's doing something else, putting on your headphones and just being like, I need my own space, at this time. But sometimes getting out can help. And then, regrouping in an hour or two or something like that.
Meeting at a coffee shop or something.
Yeah, that's worked well for us.
How do you, recognizing the signs that I'm like not feeling, that I'm feeling anxious? Do I have like some telltale signs?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think overall, you always seem like a very happy person. Like you're upbeat. You try to like always be in good spirits. You try to be talking to everybody when you can. And so
I hide it very well. My anxiety. Sometimes. In public.
Yeah, sure. In public. But like when you come home, let's say you've been out doing something and you're more quiet. I know you're like struggling a little bit maybe with like the anxiety, or sometimes you're like, you just need to go focus on your computer, or you just like, you don't really, like you're not talking as much. You're more quiet is when I know you're kind of struggling, or
that's fair.
You're like, I have to focus on this one thing. It's different than you being like, oh, I want to work on my hobby that, I'm doing. But it's like this quietness about you, this like, it's like I feel your energy when you walk in the room.
I've heard
you're
you
anxious.
say that before. I know, and it like honestly that has bothered me a lot, and for a lot of it for whatever reason, I think it bothers me because I want to hide it, and I'm like, please, like, let me hide my emotions, and you're like, no, I'm gonna feel your emotions. I mean, which if you want to, like, it's good that you like kind of,
I mean, if you want to like sit in that, okay. Like, I just want to, I acknowledge that you're not feeling like 100% yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not in a good mood. And most of the time when I like notice that and the energy kind of shifts in the room, I'm thinking kind of what's going on? Like, do you need to talk about it? Like, how can I help you? That kind of thing. Like, as my partner, I don't want you to be down when you come in.
Yeah.
I mean, and then feel sad the entire time.
Yeah, and then sometimes I get upset because I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to...
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can also say, I don't want to talk about it.
No, I know.
Yeah.
And I think I've gotten better about that. In the beginning, I was the whole, like, me wanting to hide my emotion and, you saying, oh, you're not feeling well, which is, like, really caring, which is, like, why would I not want to, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's... being in a relationship, it's definitely, it's also something that I didn't grow up with. Growing up, household. It wasn't that people didn't care, but the word energy, like, I always thought that was such like
like a frou-frou kind of word.
Yes.
Like a hippie.
Not even hippie, because I kind of grew up in the hippie area, but like, I don't know. I didn't put a lot of like weight into it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up in a house where we were like, well, actually, I think my mom did say
energy.
Like energy.
Yeah.
Huh. Memory unlocked.
Yeah.
But no, my mom would say I can feel your energy actually when she would come in my room or like talk to me. She'd be like, I feel like you're feeling like kind of off. Oh, that's kind of interesting that I say it. I feel like I say so many things that
we are our parents, right? To an extent.
Yes.
Our sayings and things.
But it's meant to just be like an acknowledgement of like, I see you and I see that you're acting differently than you usually do.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
But how about, do you see any signs?
Oh, yeah. And I say, oh, yeah, because there's one telltale sign.
What is it?
Which is like when you put I won't do it because of my microphone, but you'll take your shirt or jacket or whatever and put it like up right below your nose, like cover your mouth. Yep. And that's usually when you're like anxious about something.
Yeah, you told me that the other day and I was like, oh, really? Like, do I do that? But I do that. Yeah. And now I've noticed myself doing it as I get stressed.
Now I'm not going to know you're going to change it.
No, I probably will do the same thing and not even think about it. But yeah.
So that's one of the ways. I think you're more of a quiet person than me. And we've talked about this. This would be a good, like, another episode for our podcast, like introvert versus extrovert.
Oh, yeah.
Especially relationship. You're more of an introvert. I'm more of an extrovert. Plus, also, I'm just not, I don't know what it is, if it's just being a man or just being me, just not great with the reading of, this, I don't want to say reading of body language, more of the subtleties of body language sometimes.
Yeah.
I think men glaze over the subtleties of body language.
Yeah, and I feel like, that's actually really interesting. I notice more in my relationships with other women that depending on my relationship to that person, like how women interact with each other, there's a lot of subtleties.
Yeah, and you said this the other day, actually. I remember you talking about this with like having women friends.
I've noticed that, or like, if someone is feeling a certain kind of way, like there's just certain actions that they do or looks or things like that I think, I could be totally wrong. Other people could have a different perspective, but I notice there's little things like with how women say things and that kind of thing. But I'm only friends with women, so
and I'm mostly friends with men.
Yeah. So I've had male friends throughout my life, but like I've never noticed those subtleties with men.
Yeah.
When I interact with them or others. So, yeah.
So have you tried any apps, or are there any specific apps that have helped with, I don't know, anxiety or depression or whichever?
The only app that I've used ever like relating to anything like that is maybe like the I Am app.
Oh, right. We've talked about this, I think, a little bit in a previous
I think
episode.
we've mentioned it, but if you aren't aware of it, it's basically an app that gives you I am statements throughout the day, and you can change how many you get, and there's different backgrounds you can choose and that kind of thing, customize a theme. And basically, you can get little reminders sent to you throughout the day on your phone that pop up in your notifications that say like, I am brave, I am confident, I am strong, or like more detailed things than that, to just give you a little boost throughout the day. Like sometimes I feel anxious about like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm, or I'm not feeling confident maybe. And then I get that little boost and then it's like, oh, and then I say it to myself and, maybe I feel a little bit better after that. So it kind of takes me out of that anxious state that I'm in to just focus on one thing. So that's the only one that I can think of. How about you?
I've tried Calm, which is a meditation app. That one I used for quite a while. I haven't used it lately, but it's a good like way if you want to like guided meditation, or like I'll listen to ocean sounds like waves crashing. Yeah. The other one is I'll sometimes use my like Apple Watch lately, and it'll just be like a 1 or 2 minute meditation. Oh yeah. Which it's sometimes distracting because it like vibrates on your wrist of like when you should be taking a breath in and out. I'm like, I know when to breathe.
Wait, is this an app?
No, it's not. I don't know if I would call it an app so much. It's like built into the Apple Watch. So it's like an app, I guess, built into the Apple Watch that you don't.
But it's for meditation specifically?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So interesting. Yeah, those are the two that I use.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually, there have been a couple times where I've just gone on YouTube and they have meditations on there that you can do for like 5 minutes or whatever, or you can listen to like frequencies and that kind of thing. Yeah. To make you less anxious and calm and that kind of thing.
In terms of stressors, what are the big stressors for you?
Ooh, just in life in
or
general?
Triggers, you could say. Triggers for anxiety or depression or I mean, those are the two big ones we're talking about right now.
I think with depression, I don't really have, like, I think my anxiety and my depression kind of go hand in hand.
They are kind of linked. Yeah.
So, so I'll talk about getting anxious because I think that's the starting point and then it leads to the depression if I get to that point. But as far as anxiety, like if I have something important and major I have to do, sometimes like just the stress of that can cause some anxiety for me, whether that's like work related or like something I'm personally working on. And I think the news can be a big anxiety, stress, causing place. And I think Abe and I try to mitigate the amount of news that we're seeing because there's just so much sad
it's always
stuff.
Negative.
So much sad stuff out there, which, some things it's important that we know about those things, but yeah, it's just really sad. And I feel like you can go down a deep, dark hole with the news. So
yeah,
that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Mine, I think, is work is a stressor. I think everyone has work as a stressor, and it can cause anxiety.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just kind of how it goes because sometimes you just don't want to go to work, right?
Yes.
I guess that's why it's called work. But like, I love my job, but sometimes I just don't want to go to work, and you just have to go, right?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, work can be one, but other times, sometimes it's the weather. It's like this time of year. It's just like when it's cold, it's gray out.
Yeah.
One of the things I started like trying to practice with, even when it's gray out, one of my coping skills, I guess, I don't know if I'd call it super healthy, but it's a coping skill of I will, if it's super gray out and I don't have anything to do outside that day or whichever, I'm going to be staying in the apartment. We keep the blinds closed most of the time. And then you don't know that it's gray outside. It's an avoidance coping mechanism, I guess you could say. Because
then you have the lights inside.
Right.
Or you even have those happy lights.
Right. And we also have all our greenery too.
Yes.
Which we have all our, plants, our monstera, Malabar chestnut tree, our bonsai.
Yeah.
So it helps me to avoid it in like a healthy-ish way.
Yeah, I think that's completely fine to do. And you have all the lights on in here usually, so it makes it feel like a warm kind of environment.
Right,
so.
And it is warm in here too, especially with our heaters. And we have the heated vest. We got some heated vests from Costco.
And a heated blanket.
Yeah, and a heated blanket. Yeah. Oh, those are great.
So nice.
They are so nice. So work, and then also the weather.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, just general people. Sometimes like driving is just stressful.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I don't even have to drive far, not as far as you have to drive.
Yeah,
because
commuting. Oh, yes, it's so stressful. You drive
from Tacoma to Upper.
Yeah.
So way north. Up north. So it's and I'll drive you sometimes on my days off. And
I just feel like people are unhinged.
Literally.
There was one time where I was driving and, they have barriers on the freeway and someone was just acting a fool, honestly. And they were in a work truck too and almost drove me into a barrier. Honestly, I was very close. It was terrifying, and I felt so much stress after that. And then I was driving to work at that point, so it's 7 a.m. or whatever, and I was just so worked up on my way to work. It just wasn't even fun.
Yeah, driving is just because you have you have control, but you have no control of the people around you.
Yeah, you basically
you're at the mercy of everyone else.
Yeah, when I took driver's ed, they basically told us, you need to be a defensive driver also. You need to be watching everybody else on the road, which is that's a whole nother added layer of what you have to pay attention to.
And especially for the length of time that you're driving, which, it's a long time.
Yeah.
Even when I drive around Tacoma area, it's, I don't know. It's,
especially when it gets dark too.
That I don't
in the fall, winter time. I don't know what that is.
It doesn't even matter about the fall. It's when it gets dark. But unfortunately in fall, it gets dark early. So then you're out like, at 3 or 4 o'clock and you're like, oh no, it's getting dark. I got to get home.
Yeah. Well, going off of that stressor of commuting or just driving, like the Costco parking lot, that place is atrocious. I mean, it's kind of funny, but like, it's kind of not. Like, people are nuts.
Yeah, especially for the gas, station there.
Or just in the parking lot. They're driving all kinds of ways. 3 people backing out at one time. I mean, not paying attention.
In our Costco parking lot, there is that like 4-way. It's not I don't want to call it an intersection, but it's almost like an intersection in the parking lot. People are coming in, and then there's 3 ways of trying to coming out.
But it has like a diagonal road. Yeah. And if you're turning from one side of the parking lot, you kind of miss the stop sign and you just keep going.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5-way.
Is it 5?
Yeah, because there's a lane that anyway.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. So and then not everyone follows the rules because it's a parking lot, so it's you're just trying to be courteous to other people.
It's just awful.
Yeah, it is awful.
I try to avoid it after like 4 or 5 o'clock.
I don't even go to the front of the parking lot anymore either because I know, not to be pessimistic, but there's usually not parking up there. That's realism right there.
Yeah, that's real.
I don't want to get stuck up there while like someone is like spocking, right? Stalking for another person.
Right.
Which happened today while we were at the Fred Meyer parking lot. It's just
that was
this
so weird.
Big truck just blocked the entire lane.
To get a closer spot when they could have driven a little farther down and gotten a different spot. But whatever.
But I think we've all done that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I've done it.
I'm guilty.
Yeah. So keeping the cool, really.
Yes.
Yeah, but commuting is definitely a stressor.
Yeah.
Just whether going to the store or going to work. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think in general, we all experience stress and anxiety to some extent. We all face different challenges within our lives. We all have to work at some point. Yeah. We all have to commute to different places if it's work or if it's just going to someone's house or whatever. You can experience stress at any time.
So Inside and Out, I absolutely loved how anxiety was portrayed in that.
That movie is so cute. I love it. All the extra different emotions that you could experience.
Yeah, where she came in with all of her baggage. She's like, I'm here, guys.
Yeah. Which was really funny when she came in. It was like you immediately knew she was anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't know that anxiety was an emotion.
I don't think I've ever thought of it in that way, but I haven't thought about it too much and what it really is.
Right. I always thought of anxiety as like a disabling, whatever, anxiety, not emotion, but like now that I know it's an emotion, I want to call it an emotion, but like a disabling something.
Yeah.
But I was reading somewhere that it's like, so if anxiety is an emotion, like how is anxiety how is it helpful, in the normal day world?
Yeah.
And so I had read something where the example was like, you get anxiety about taking the garbage out on Friday. And once you take the garbage out, the anxiety goes away. But it's like not crippling anxiety. It's just a little bit of like, hey, you need to do this.
Kind of like a reminder, like, you need to be watching out for this. You need to do this.
Or like, so exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes away. But anxiety is not like that for me.
No, definitely not. It's not like a little reminder.
No, it's like screaming in my face sometimes. I'm like, go away. Why am I having this?
But I do agree, after something's completed or I've kind of finished that and I had anxiety about it, I do feel relieved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the perfect analogy. I forget where I heard that. I think it was like on a TED Talk or something.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on Brewed Together. It's been really, enlightening, I think, to talk about our, I want to call them negative emotions, but I don't know if they're like so negative.
Yeah.
Like to really be called negative emotions. Sometimes they're unwanted emotions, I guess we could
unwanted.
say.
But there's something that we all experience.
Right.
So
thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.